Hi everyone, Tammy here along with Malibu and Miami. Welcome to another Blythe Sewing Basics video. This is episode number 5 in my series. We are going to make this super cute little sun top. So just to remind you, video number 4, I showed how to make this super easy elastic waist skirt. It does not require any type of pattern. I wanted to do something similar and again make something very easy that does not require a pattern. And so I came up with this very basic sun, I'm calling it a sun top. All right, I'm going to show you what you need here in a minute as far as supplies. But as you can see, it works really well with the elastic waist skirt that I showed how to make in the previous video. All right, before I get into the supplies, I just want to mention, like I said, neither one of these projects requires a pattern. However, in future videos, I do plan to talk about how to use a pattern when you're sewing, because there are some wonderful patterns out there for Blythe clothes. And I'm going to give you more details at the end of the video, but I have teamed up with an Etsy shop, and somebody is going to be giving you guys a 20% off code to use in her Etsy shop so that you can pick up some of her patterns. And like I said, I'll give you more details at the end, but let's get into the sewing. You're going to need some coordinating fabric. I'm going to go ahead and use this pineapple fabric again and make a matching top. You can see here I just did 2 different fabrics that kind of look good together, so you could do that as well. But I'm going to go ahead and make a little pineapple top to go with the pineapple skirt. Also have some matching thread. Of course, you're going to need your pin cushions and your pins. You're going to need some sewing needles because we will attach the straps by hand. You could use also your sewing machine, but honestly for something like that, it's probably just easier to do it by hand. At least that's how I feel. You will need your sewing machine if you are going to use a sewing machine. Again, you could also do all of this totally by hand. You want a fabric marker. I'm going to be using Fray Check. I will not be zigzagging like I typically do. I find Fray Check works better for this particular project. And then I also have a little bit of plastic wrap, actually it's wax paper. You could use plastic wrap too. But I have these little wax paper pieces that I use, and when I put the Fray Check on it, I put my fabric on these, and that way it doesn't stick to everything. You are also going to need some ribbon that is 3/16 of an inch wide. That's 5 millimeters. I recommend having 2 pieces that are 6 inches long each, so a total of 12 inches. Also, you're going to need some sort of measuring tool. You could either use a gauge ruler, you could use your measuring tape, you could also use a yardstick like I also used in the previous video. Whoops, Miami just reminded me that I need to tell you guys you also need 2 snaps size 4.0. You may also substitute this for Velcro if you do not want to sew snaps onto the back of your top. All right, let's cut out our piece. All right, I have my fabric, I have my marking pen, and my ruler, and I went ahead and drew a rectangle that is 2 inches this way and 5 inches this way. Also, just to note, you don't have to do this. It all depends on what you want to do and your fabric. But I'm going to attempt to get this pineapple centered in as best I can on my top. So 5 inches, this is 2.5 inches here. This is 2 inches this way. And this is called fussy cutting. You can see I did this here for this particular little dress that I'm showing you. This is just an example. And that means that when I cut out the top, I wanted to make sure that this seahorse was in the center. So I was really careful with my pattern piece and made sure that I was cutting so that the center would have this item on it. Okay, so that's just something to think about. You don't necessarily have to do that. It all depends on your fabric and what you're doing. But I am, fingers crossed, hoping to get that pineapple in the center of my sun top. So let's see how that goes. All right, so let me go ahead and cut it. Obviously, you're going to need scissors as well. So now I'm going to just put some Fray Check on the edges all around. You can see I've got my wax paper piece here. All right, so I've already got my Fray Check open. If you haven't used Fray Check before, yeah, there's kind of an art to it. It really can come out all over the place, so you just have to take your time. Fray check is dry, and now I'm warming up my iron here, and I'm just going to fold over on each end 1/4 inch right here, and I'm going to press it. If you want, you could put a little pin here. Depends on how comfortable you are. I don't really think it needs a pin, but you could put a pin here if you want. Okay, and I'm going to press the other side 1/4 inch just to give you an idea. Here you go with the ruler. Again, press it. If you want, you could add a pin. I'm going to go over to my machine and just straight stitch on each end. If you're going to do this by hand, this is where I would suggest doing a straight stitch. As I mentioned in the previous video where I made the elastic waist skirt, having a little bit of tissue paper underneath the fabric is useful so that the fabric does not get caught up into the bobbin case underneath. All right, it's not 100% necessary, but I find it very handy. I'm also, because it's such a small spot, I'm going to shorten my stitch length. It is normally 2.5. I'm just going to go down a little bit. So I'm going to make the stitches a little bit shorter, which is something I typically recommend doing for most doll items, especially when they're quite small like this. My needle's down, my presser foot's down. I've got it lined up here, and I'm going to just do a straight stitch. Do a couple of stitches, back a couple of stitches, forward all the way down, same kind of thing. Now I'm just peeling off the paper. There's a little bit more there. And I will take a pair of little scissors and trim off the excess threads and do the same on the other side. So you can see here's both sides are sewn, okay? I have my iron. I'm going to turn my iron on again and do the same thing, but on the opposite side. I'm going to fold again 1/4 inch and press it and put some pins in it. Okay, so I folded over 1/4 inch, pressed, put a couple of pins. You can see I have my pineapples in the middle. I lost a little bit of the bottom part of the pineapple, but not too bad. It's going to work. I think it's going to work. Okay, so yeah, so now I'm ready to go over and again, make sure that when you do pin it that you orientate the pins correctly. This is where I'm going to put my presser foot over this, and this will be on the left. This rest of this is going to be on the left side, so I can pull my pins out. If I were to do it this way, then my pins, I'd have to pull it out this way. So just keep aware of that when you're putting your pins in, so you don't have to repin anything when you get to the machine. So again, I suggest if you are doing this by hand, if you're stitching this by hand, just go ahead and use a straight stitch all the way across. And I am going to use a straight stitch on the machine. Do the same exact thing I did on the other ends, where I'm going to do a couple of stitches, go back a couple of stitches, and then go forward all the way down. I will also use paper again underneath the ends. I don't feel like I need to use paper over the whole thing, but definitely at the end and the beginning. Here's a better angle. You can see I'm just going to stitch all the way down. As usual, I will do a couple of forward stitches and then backward stitches and then stitch all the way down. I have also got my stitch size down a little bit. I made it a little bit smaller, and I will be good to go. So let's stitch both these sides up. All right, I finished stitching the rectangle that's going to be a top here in a minute, and now we're ready to put the straps on. Like I said, you need your ribbon, and you're going to need some sharp scissors. I like my good gingers here for this. You also need a ruler, You're going to need two pieces that are 6 inches long each. And I like to cut the edge of mine, the end of mine at an angle. Okay, so now we're going to measure it. So one end I'm cutting just straight across, and the other end I'm cutting at an angle. So this is going to be, one end is straight, the other is at an angle. Oop. Get it in the camera range there, girl. Right, so I have my 2 pieces that are 6 inches long. So the angled ends are going to be outside and the straight ends are going to be stitched on the inside of your top. You also need a ruler for this. Right now I'm going to measure off the areas that I'm going to attach my straps. Again, make sure that my pineapples are in the right direction. You don't have to have a gauge ruler, but if you do have one, this is a good time to use one, and you want to measure off 1 3/4 inches. You're measuring from this end to the center, and I'm going to just mark it with a straight pin right there. I'm going to do the same on the other side. Again, 1 3/4 inches. Get a pin, mark it right there. This is where I'm going to hand stitch my straps. You just get a visual idea of what I'm doing here. I'm just going to place these so you see what I'm doing. And so in the middle, there's just going to be like a 1/2 inch gap in between the 2 straps, okay? So I'm going to replace this pin. I'm going to take this pin out and put it back in, but put my strap there. Okay, I'm going to leave this for now, and I'm just going to take a needle and thread and just stitch this back and forth, up and down numerous times to make sure it's nice and secure. Now I'm going to do it on the other side, and we will have both straps attached to our top. All right, so I have both of my straps attached. Okay, they're nice and secure. My pineapple's in the right direction. It looks like it's going to be in the center, so that's pretty nice. Wasn't sure about that. And now I am going to attach the snaps to finish this up. So let me just say, there are Velcro people and there are snap people, and then there are people who do Velcro and snap. So it just kind of depends. It's a personal choice here. I tend to prefer snaps whenever possible because I find I have issues with getting the Velcro stuck on doll hair. So that's why I tend to go with snaps. These are size 4/0, 4.0, sometimes I've heard them called, but that's the size I usually get. There's a front and a back to a snap. Pull one off here so you can see. This is super tedious, okay? Not gonna lie to you. This is a tedious process, and it is one reason why a lot of people would rather just use some stick-on Velcro and be done with it. So, you know, like I said, that is your choice. There are so many different ways to attach snaps. You would be amazed. Go to YouTube and Google how to attach a snap, and you will find all kinds of methods. But I'm going to just mention a few little tips here that really relate more to this specific project. So here's the top that Miami was wearing. I went ahead and took it off of her so you could see a closer look at it. So you notice I have 2 snaps, one at the top, one at the bottom. So this is the front of it, all right? The back of it has the other snaps, okay? And I need to make sure when I fold it over that they fit like that, okay? So you'll notice that the inside has the snaps here, but the front has the other side of the snaps. All right, so that's just something to keep in mind. You do want to line them up as best you can. Again, sometimes I will use a marking pin for that. I will attach one and then kind of just eyeball it with the other and mark with my little marking pin. So that's one little tip. Again, I really recommend, if you want to master snaps, to do some research on YouTube and find a method that works for you. One of the major things I would say to be careful about, let me find these. In these in particular, these thicker, the one with the hole in it. So one side has the thing that sticks out that goes in the hole, and one has the hole, okay? So these in particular, I've noticed if I'm not careful with my thread, it can get very bulky and be difficult for this part to fit into and close shut, okay? So you want to just be aware of that. I will demonstrate on camera here me doing one of these. Okay, oh, take it apart, yeah. And like I said, it's kind of a personal preference thing, so my way is not necessarily the only correct way to do this. I should also mention real quick before I get stitching here, in my first video I talked about the size of needles that you need. This is when it's really crucial that your hand sewing needles are nice and small, because you want to make sure they can get through the holes in your snap. If they can't get through those holes, you're going to have a heck of a time. All right, all the snaps are on. Hopefully you could tell what I was doing. I have, not the premium setup as far as doing tutorials when it comes to my camera setup. So I was trying to show you the best that I could. But like I said, there are so many different ways to do your snaps that it's always a good idea to see various methods, try them out and see what works for you. But the top is now finished. I'm going to put it on Malibu and show you what it looks like on her. Okay, voila, it's finished. I think it turned out pretty cute. You can take a close look at it. I got the pineapple in the center just like I wanted to. She's all tied in here. You just tie the straps around their necks. There's her little, what do you call it? The snaps are snapped in. And you'll notice that so Miami is on a traditional Takara body and Malibu is on a fakie style body. So with this particular top, you can see it does fit them a little bit differently. This one for her, it fits better if you tuck in the top into the skirt, whereas this one, I could have made the top a little bit longer if I wanted to tuck it in, but I chose to go ahead and just make it this, like I said, that's 2 inches wide, and you lose a ½ inch with the seam allowance there, but I think it turned out perfect. Yeah. Now, there are some things you can do differently. Instead of using the 2 straps and tie it around the neck, you could actually add some straps. Here's the same exact top, actually exactly the same. But what I did is I tried to experiment and I added, even though it does have a snap back here, I just put 1 snap. I added the straps like this on the inside. These are about 2 inches long from what I remember. So if you'd rather have spaghetti straps instead of tying it around the neck, you can try that. You could, like the skirt, you could add some trim on the bottom. I've already seen a few people making the skirt and they added some lace trim to it. You could do the same thing with the top. You could also not finish the edge here, skip the fray check and then purposely make it sort of fraying at the bottom, and that would be very boho and cute. So yeah, this little top, again, no pattern required, basically a rectangle. Do some straight stitching and voila, you have a little sun top. So I really like how this turned out. If you guys are making these, please make sure that you tag me out there on social media, either on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, you know, wherever. And I do have more plans for future sewing projects that go along with this series. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I have contacted an Etsy shop owner. Her name is Susan, and she has an Etsy shop called Dolly Delicacies. All right. And she has agreed to give a 20% off coupon code for my viewers. And the coupon code to get 20% off Dolly Delicacies, you have to spend at least $5, but most of her patterns are about $5, is called Kawaii Doll 20, and that will get you 20% off anything in her store as long as you spend $5. So yeah, thank you to Susan. I reached out to her and she was really sweet about it. I do have some more videos in the works for my Blythe Sewing Basics series, so I'm hoping everybody's finding them useful, and I will keep going. I do have more ideas, so please make sure you subscribe if you haven't already so that you can get notifications of those future videos. As usual, I always appreciate a thumbs up. And yeah, have a wonderful Dolly day. Bye-bye.